you should not glue the clear pieces to the material slot lid until the paint job is finished. That's what I advise. To be honest, you should just leave these for now, but just a clear warning that you should not glue this onto these until the paint job is finished. The reason is because if you get paint on them, it's going to be kind of screwed, so you don't want to do that. You want to leave them away until it's all finished. So these bits aside. You're going to need to put the other side of the handle onto the rod. You're going to have to put super glue on the flat area here. And keep in mind, you're going to have to work pretty fast because super glue dries very quickly. As you put super glue on both sides, you're going to need to be very quick, and you're going to have to align it by eye. So have a look at it. Have a look at the pommel from this side, like this, and align it so that both sides are pointing the same way, and then push it together once it's aligned. And then just hold it for around a minute until it cures. If you want to make sure it's extra strong, you can put super glue on the copper rod as well, but you need to be very careful about how fast you work and how accurate you work. So if you're not very comfortable with working fast, then it might not be a good idea to put the super glue here. But me personally, I put it there for extra strength, extra adhesion to the copper rod. It also may help if you have something pushing against the rod, so make sure it's not sliding all over the place. So for example, I can push this into the wall. So now we have some excess super glue here that got squished out. So now I can just clean it off with some tissue. So this is going to start looking messy, but that's okay because we're going to have the cloth covering here. When gluing the two guard pieces, make sure that the small holes are next to each other and they're not misaligned like that. Make sure they're like that. The next step is to super glue the pins in. So before you actually put the super glue in the slot, you want to make sure it fits well. If it doesn't fit well, like this one, turn around. See, and it fits much better. So make sure it fits easily. These are just for alignment. For one side is 2 on the top. For the other side is 1. This is just to distinguish where the sharp bit of the sword goes. So let's just check. This one fits fine, so we can start putting the super glue in. You don't want to put a lot in for now because obviously the sword needs to go in later. But this is just to keep it in place. So just a tiny drop inside and just push it in. And there we go, that's good. And then same thing. Check that it fits. If it doesn't, flip it over until it does fit in. Super glue. Just a tiny bit because you don't want it overflowing. Put the pin in. All the way. There we go. And then do the other side. Actually, before the super glue again. So the pin goes in fine. Super glue, tiny drop, don't let it overflow, don't lose the pin. Goes in fine, and now do the inside. Now you don't want to get the super glue on the edges. I kind of got some on here, but so let's just wipe it off quickly. And goes in fine. Goes in fine. Now we've got all the pins in this one, so 5 in total. Now you want to put it through the rod. This has got a little curve to it, so you do need to push it from the top. And make sure that the bottom pin is going to the handle area. because that's going to slide into the handle like that. So this is why you need the alignment. But before you do this part, you need to glue in these parts together like that. So to do that, lay it like this. I see the pin transfer to the other one by accident, but that's okay because we're still working. Anyway, so now you can do this two ways actually, because if we super glue this and we get it on the rod, we might not be able to pull it down. So again, you need to work quick with this. So I'm gonna work pretty quick. So that's more than enough because super glue literally fuses them together. And at the same time, I think I'm gonna put some super glue on the handle. Can you show this? On here. So it might squish out as we put it together. Oh crap, I forgot pins on this side. So I should have actually had pins in this as well. Wrong side. Right. So see, I already held it for quite a bit too long already. Right now. There we go. Okay. And now squeeze it together. Now just hold it for around a minute, because super glue will fuse it all together. Oh, good. It's very nicely aligned. You can't even really see the seams. But yeah, as you can see there, some super glue is seeping through. So have some tissue to wipe it down. Remember, the colors do not matter right now, so like if we get some seeping out, we're still gonna sand it, we're gonna process it, so it doesn't matter too much. What matters now is getting seamless lines, making sure everything's glued nice and tight. Turn it around, check the other side. There we go, nice. So this is 1,500 millimeters by 15 millimeter copper pipe. This is used for plumbing, and I use this one because it's very easy to access. You can get this at any hardware store. Now you want to make sure that this is very smooth and doesn't stick out. If it sticks out, the segments aren't going to go in. So once you know that this is smooth, you can move on. Have your segments pre-arranged. They've got numbers on the bottom, so have them pre-arranged. I don't have a segment 1 at the moment, but it doesn't matter for demonstrational purposes. I'm just going to show you how it goes on. So I'm going to show you how it's supposed to go on, then I'm going to show you a little problem as well. So if you don't feel anything stopping it, then it's going in fine. If you feel like it's not going in easily, then we have a problem that we need to solve. So this is number 3. Make sure they obviously align. This isn't about gluing, this is just about how they're going to be put on. Number 4. This one's a bit tighter, but it still goes on pretty easily. If you struggle a little bit, just turn it. Don't push it, turn it. As long as it goes in while you're turning, then it's fine. But if it's not going in easily, then we need to resolve it through different methods. Anyway, let's keep going. So this is segment 5. Okay, here we go. See, when you hear that, it's a bit of cracking. So that means we need to resolve this one. Clearly, there's a slight problem with this. There shouldn't be a problem with any of the orders because they're pre-checked like I'm doing now. So this is before the shipping, of course, but just in case there's warping when it comes to you, this is what I'm showing you how to fix. So clearly, this is fine, but this is slightly tight. So if we forced it in, this would probably crack. So instead, the way I'll resolve this is I use a drum sander. This is with a Dremel. If you don't have this, you could just get a bit of sandpaper, wrap it around your finger, for example, like that, and put it into the hole and then turn it. So just sandpaper will do. Just turn it. But as I'm saying, it shouldn't have any problems when it arrives to you because it's already checked by me. So which side was we having problems with? It was this side. So this is how I resolve it. I know that the problem is here. At either the base or the end, either the bottom or the top. And let's do the other side as well, just in case. Then let's do a check. We're going to be gluing the hilt to the sword segments. Now, I'm going to be also including the massive magnets, so that may not be applicable to you, which are going to go in here. I'm going to glue them in with super glue. I'm going to use Gorilla super glue because I really like them. Now, I have included some spare sample pieces for you to play around with, so you could super glue 2 pieces together, just so you feel the bond, how the 2 pieces fuse together. They literally fuse together, so you don't need epoxy resin to glue each segment together. You only need epoxy resin to fill in the gaps. So the super glue literally fuses the 2 plastics together and they won't come apart. It literally melts them together. So anyway, let's get going. I'm going to grab the first piece, and you can see it's labelled 1 at the bottom, and just put it up for the top. Now you can see 1 pin here, and there's 2 pins here, and same here. There's 2 holes. So just do a test push. So it aligns. Yeah, you hear that? It means it went into the holes. There you go. So turn it round, because this part is much more flatter than this bit. You can just put the super glue in the areas I show you. Now you don't want to overflow it. You don't need a lot of super glue here at all. So let me just show you. You do not need a lot of super glue. There's no way these pieces are going to come out. I advise for these areas just to put it here. Not to put it here, because that's where the lid inserts. That's all you really need. You don't need much more, because there's nowhere it's going to go anyway when all the segments are on. So there we go. That's all you need. You do not need a lot. Now we didn't want to put a lot here because these bits are nice if they look clean. Anyway, next segment. So again, the number is in the bottom, number 2. Slide it on to the top. And it aligns. Okay, now this bit is a bit different because we don't have any pins, and you don't need any pins because you can just align it with your fingers. That's just how I recommend aligning it, so it's perfectly even on both sides. So you want to check from the side that it aligns correctly. So anyway, also another thing that you want to do is, I don't want to paint the inside here. I want to, because I like the way this looks already. So I'm going to put a little bit of super glue here so it doesn't overflow down here, or you could even do it upside down. Oh no, you can't really, because you need to kind of push it up. Anyway, so I'm going to use quite a little bit. I'm not going to use a lot because I don't want the super glue flowing down here. So be a bit more generous on the sides, just where you don't want the super glue to spill. So I'm going to use little. There we go. And use your fingers. You might want to use gloves. Okay, here, see? Push down gently. whilst using your fingers to align it. Just check alignment, squish it together. And remember, the super glue fuses them together, so there's no way they're gonna pry off. If it's a good super glue, of course. So make sure it's CA glue, which is super glue. CA, I believe, is the chemical. If you are underage, by the way, do make sure to be accompanied by an adult, or an adult does it for you. There we go, that's looking very good. No glue seeped out, which is very nice. I want it clean. Okay, before I move on to the next segments, I do want to super glue in the battery holder and the switch. The reason is because I want to mask this whole area, because this whole area I don't want to be painted. So let's glue in first. So again, with super glue, but I'm only gonna put in very little bit. So here you can see. So I'm gonna put it onto the flat areas, very tiny bit, so it doesn't spill out, because I want these bits clean. Tiny bit. Very tiny bit. Tiny bit. Oh, sorry, there we go. But you don't need a lot here, just very tiny bit. There we go, tiny bit. Tiny dot. Now you can just slide it in. Make sure the switch is at the bottom. So now gently and carefully slide in. Remember, the super glue is going to be pushing out. So there we go. I just leave it there to settle with the super glue. Okay. And now we're going to mask this whole segment up, because it's very clean and I do not want any paint there at all. Besides, if you do paint it as well, so imagine that you spray paint it with putty, which is sort of whitish, and then you have black on top. When you have the lid going on and off all the time, eventually that's going to scratch the black off, revealing the putty, the white putty underneath, so it's going to look inconsistent. So this is why I'm going to mask this area off. Okay, the easiest and quickest way to protect this inside bit is just masking the lid, the bottom of the lid, the material holes, and then just pop it in. Careful with the magnet is going to click in. See? And now the whole lid is protected. Of course, the spray might get into the gaps, but that is manageable. So that's a quick and easy way how to protect it. So first of all, you need to be very careful, because these are very strong magnets. So you want to find the orientation first. Make sure each side attracts the other side, because you don't want them to be next to each other, pushing away from the plastics. Oops. See, this is, you need to be very careful. These are very dangerous. So see, if the polarity is pushing away, you shouldn't glue it like that. They should be attracting to each other like that. So once you know the orientation, they will go in like so, and just sit there. Might want to get a test piece and see if it just sits right on top first. I'm just setting this quite a bit tighter. So it should go in. There we go. Now we know that it sits flush. It'll be fine. So just going to pull it out. So I'm going to use quite a lot of super glue for this. One more time, I'm going to check the orientation. Yep, they attract to each other. Okay, so I'm going to use a glove for this, because I'm pretty sure it's going to get messy. And I'm going to start with filling up the hole with some super glue. I'm going to fill up both holes actually, because I'm going to do them at the same time together. And the top part as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot of things to keep in mind at this point. Okay, I'm going to just lay it down for a second on the side. And now, I think we're going to start super gluing Again, check orientation before you start super gluing. You don't want them pushing away from each other. So that this is flat part, and now I'm going to start putting glue on both sides. Okay, once it's on, I'm put it into the hole, the glued part. Okay, it's seeping out a bit. That can be fixed. That's fine, no problem. And now get the other magnet. Now you don't want to lean this down. You don't want the magnet to fall out. So I'm gonna lean it like this instead for now. Like that, so it doesn't fall down. Then again, I'm gonna push the magnet. Just check orientation again. Okay, so that was pushes away. This pulls. Okay, so it's gonna have to go in like that. So remember orientation, very important. Super glue, super glue, super glue, super glue. Lots of it. Again, check orientation one more time. Okay, that pushes, pulls together, and then super glue goes inside. Have your fingers on them, and now I'm going to put even more super glue on both of these sides, because I'm going to push the segment on top in a second, and on the inside, both sides. Yeah, I want quite a lot on these bits because they're very, very key for holding the Buster Sword against the harness. And now push the segment on top carefully. Make sure they align. Okay. Carefully. Now align it. And then push down. Align each edge. Make sure they, and then push down quite. I'm not going to do too much pressure. I don't want it to snap, of course. But then again, I've got the pommel, this solid piece, so it shouldn't snap, as it's a solid piece. Yep, just quite a bit of pressure. Super glue here. Not too big of a deal. It will sand down. Yeah, it's much more important to focus on alignment. Just to make sure that there is gluing. I'm just pushing down on it. Give it a minute or so. Even though super glue is very, very quick drying. That looks very good. Yeah, that looks very nice and even. There's super glue here. Just wearing a glove, so that's fine. Check the number 4. So obviously they go on sequentially. So put it on. There it goes. Check alignment. Yep, that's right. So now we're going to put the super glue on top. Just give it a nice quick paint. That's all you need. You don't need much. And then push down. So you see these gaps. This is going to have to be filled with resin, epoxy resin. Yep, I'm not going to hold it too long because I know these are very strong. So move on to the next segment. Next segment is quite short, which is number 5. There it goes. This one goes on very easily. Super glue. So again, super glue. Glue. Just make sure it's clean as well. On it goes. Again, if you're using your finger, it's advisable to use a glove so you don't get super glue on your fingers. I'm going to push down both sides so they meet a bit more, but keep checking that they're aligning correctly. You do not want a segment not aligned. It will look pretty bad if it's not aligned. Next segment is going to have a hole for the drawn steel rod. So for this piece we're going to still super glue it at the bottom, pretty straightforward, but when it comes to the drawn steel I'm going to tell you the next steps. Okay, so for this segment we're going to put the drawn steel through the segment completely so it's freely moving. Once it is, we'll put it onto the top of the copper, and obviously it's not going to go in because this is angled. So we back up the drawn steel and then we move this down, and then we can actually insert the drawn steel. So this is what we're going to have to do when we put the super glue on. So back up the drawn steel and then just a little bit, just until it sticks out just a little bit, around 2 millimeters. So now we can apply the super glue. Okay, now for the final segment, I have two different versions. One is the one that I make, the full build version, which uses this, and it has a hole at the top. This is so that I can have the drawn steel to the very top, whilst the kit version is a bit more basic, so it finishes around here. The reason I'm including this in the kit version is because you require quite a lot of skill with this, with an angle grinder, so you need a bit more tools and a bit more expertise, I guess. So this is why I'm not bothering including this in the kit version. I'm just including a more simpler version of this. So it's the same principle, just super glue at the bottom, shove it on top, easy, done. Same goes for this. It's just more simpler, there's no grinding involved. Say I got this rod, which is, you can see the rod is too thin, and say this is what we have and we don't have anything else. We can still be able to use it by using tape to thicken it up. However, you don't want to use the tape by making it go round and round and round. You just want to use it as a one long line. And I advise do not use electrical tape because it stretches, flexes, and since it's rubbery it might be hard to slide in and out. So I am going to use masking tape because it just slides in better and it doesn't flex or stretch. So for example, I'm going to just measure it and then tear it off. And then put it alongside. One side first. One side, the other side. I'm not going to roll it just yet. First of all, I'm going to just stick it down to the side gently. Lift it up. Just make sure it's folded on that one side before I start rolling it. Okay, now one side is pretty secure. I can start rolling it. Very small bit at a time because you do not want to crease. Yeah, very little bit at a time. You can see that causes a crease. That won't be good when it slides in because it's going to be bigger. So you don't want any creases, of course. No, that's starting to overlap the other side, I believe. Or, yep, it is. So that's not a crease, that's just the overlap. See, if you were using the wrapping method of like that, there would be too many overlaps and it would be inconsistent thickness. So some parts may get through easy, some parts wouldn't. See, a bit of a crease there. I want to sort that out. Now it's pretty much to the end, so I'm just going to do this. Although there's a slight crease here. Ah, got a bit of a tear. Not good. But we might be able to get away with it. good. Now I can try squeeze it out. So you should cut this off, but just for now, let's just see if it goes in. And it's, see, and if you look close up, the tolerance is much better. There's still a bit of a gap, so we could put a bit more tape on. So that is a really good way to go around it, and it slides in and out easy. But I see if you put in any more tape, it might not go in. So let's just try and make it a little bit thicker. So I'm going to use a small strip instead of the whole rod, because if it's too thick, then we're going to have to remove the whole thing, and it's going to interfere with the layer underneath while you're removing it. So just doing a small bit is much simpler in case you get it wrong. Well, not wrong, but in case it's too thick. So let's try that. And that is perfect now, I think. Yeah. There we go. That looks pretty much perfect now. So I'm happy with that.